So what do you think of this trip so far?
It's been mind-boggling how comprehensive, beautiful, and just overall instructive, and I recommend everybody on the planet come to see you on the next trip.
What's that flag you got there, Rod?
This is the papal flag, which is the most important flag on the planet.
So what do you think so far?
Well, I like it a lot.
Wonderful time, lots of information that I've never heard before. So I think
Lots of beautiful artwork and culture.
I could never remember. I don't know what the kid is.
You've been wonderful. Really nice to have you with us. All right, Father, what do you think?
When I sat in the chair next to the bishop's chair in St. Clement's, I felt like I was sitting where priests and saints and all sorts of wonderful people have sat and celebrated God's holy sacraments, and I was just in heaven.
For like 2,000 years.
Right. St. Peter was down below,
yeah.
And I was really thrilled.
Yeah.
But you get that idea, do I belong here? And then we're part of the family.
Yeah. All right, Chris, it's your turn.
I love walking in the footsteps of the very early church fathers. St. Paul, St. Peter, even walking on probably the same stones, the early Roman roadways. It's been fantastic. Love the side streets and the little shops, and the food's been just great.
Good, glad you're enjoying it.
Excellent.
Well, here we all are, ready to head back to the bus, and we're going to go to St. Agnes outside the walls.
Turns left and right and left and right. Looks a lot like the work that the guy who did in my house left. And then to your left, you have one of our most splendid parks. It's probably considered, in a certain sense, it's considered our central park. It's the Borghese Park. And the Borghese family, who we've been following around these past few days, the Borghese name is emblazoned on the front of St. Peter's because they're the ones who gave the new facade of St. Peter's. The Borghese symbol was emblazoned on the ceiling of San Sebastiano because they're the ones who paid for the new San Sebastiano. And when we go to St. Agnes outside the walls, which is where we're going now, just in case you're wondering where the bus is going, when you go to St. Agnes outside the walls, you'll see the beautiful silver casket that contains the remains of St. Agnes and St. Emerenziana. It was given again by the Borghese Pope. And the Borghese
And that is to be a father, is to be a priest, and to be a priest is really to fulfill this fatherly call. It's a spiritual father figure in the family of God. And the priest was glad to do it. It's a bad sign when you have clergy or elders selling their priestly services to the highest bidder. Submitting to all of the social pressures, to climb the ladder. But it reminds us that corruption within the priesthood is nothing new. The more things change, etc. So this idea that the Levites are priests, but because of that, they are spiritual fathers, this becomes institutionalized. This becomes commonplace. This becomes the way we think without even having to think about it. Because this is the institution of the priesthood for well over a millennium for all of Israel. Can you imagine how difficult it would have been for God to simply take what he had erected well over 1,000 years before and dismantle it and convince people that we're going to replace it with something new? That's exactly what he intended to do. And that's exactly what through Christ he accomplished. Now, what is the only book of the New Testament that explicitly identifies Jesus as a priest, Hebrews, quote unquote? There's priestly imagery, priestly allusions in several books, especially John's farewell discourse in the Gospel of Luke and elsewhere, especially the Apocalypse. But nowhere is he ever called a priest except for the book of Hebrews. not just called a priest once or twice. That is the overarching theme of the entire book. But where does the author of Hebrews first introduce the idea that Jesus is not just a priest? He's our high priest. And he's superior to Aaron. He's superior to the Levites. He's even superior to the angels. The author sets forth this case in Hebrews chapter 1 from the very outset. In the first 4 verses, he identifies how it is that he had spoken to the prophets in the Old Testament, but now he has given to us his definitive revelation in and through the Son. Not a Son, but the Son. Hebrews 1:1-4. Now when the Hebrews hear this, wow, God isn't speaking anymore just simply to the prophets. He's speaking through not a Son, but the Son. They might have easily fallen into a misunderstanding. Because in the Old Testament, it was very uncommon to ever have humans referred to as sons of God. In fact, the only clear evidence points to David and the son of David and the heirs who ruled the dynastic line of David. They're the only individuals who ever be referred to as sons of God. And that's really by way of adoption among humans. But who do we frequently find being referred to as sons of God throughout the Old Testament? Bene Elohim is referred to angels. The angels were frequently referred to as sons of God. So once we discover in Hebrews 1 the author is saying God has not spoken not just through the prophets, but the one who is fulfilling whatever the prophet said, the Son, what does he have to prove? That this is not just any old son of God, like the angels sons of God. How did he do it? In Hebrews 1:6, we read, when God brought his firstborn son into the world, he said, let all the angels worship him. So there are sons, and then there's the Son. They're Bene Elohim, and then there is the Protoctopos, the firstborn son of the eternal Father. And that's what we discover. That fatherhood is not primarily human and biological. It is eternally divine and theological. And so what God the Father is doing by sending his firstborn is to replace the Levites, which were only installed as an interim ministry, much like you see alongside of these old churches, scaffold erected alongside the front or the side of the building, because, things are falling out. It's because it needs to be cleaned up, refurbished, perhaps even reconstructed. Well, Israel, as God's firstborn, needed to be more than refurbished. It needed to be reconstructed. It needed to be entirely redeemed. So the Levites are like scaffold. And it's only torn down, in this case, when God the